What happens if we try to play with 8 cranial platings in Legacy? Let's go find out. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored not only by Moxfield.com, but also by CoolStuffInc.com. I am really excited about this partnership. They're going to be sponsoring my videos from here on out, and promo code ThrabenU will get you 5% off all of your orders and support my content. And they've done something really generous. I will be giving out $50 gift cards to Cool Stuff Inc. this week. So leave a comment down below to get yourself entered in that drawing. So maybe a week or so ago, I played with a Tezzeret deck, and Ryan wanted to see another one, but they wanted me to build a version where we went aggro with our artifact cards today. So today we are going to be playing 8 Cranial Plating effects and trying to get into the red zone as quickly as possible. Nettlecyst is our secondary copy of Cranial Plating, and while it costs more to equip, this one does come with a germ token attached to it. While many artifact decks in Legacy try to rely on a Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor based engine, they were going to try to lower our curve and really just go fast. Like, we're going fast enough that we are playing Ornithopter in this deck as a zero-cost artifact to help turn on cards like Mox Opal and just be another body for Cranial Plating. There is one card that I desperately wanted to play in this deck, but just doesn't exist on Magic Online that yet, and that's Skorpek Lord. This is from the Necron Warhammer 40k set, and it's a 3/2 with Menace that also gives your other artifact creatures a power buff and Menace, while also having Unearth. This would be really strong in the sort of deck that I am looking to build here, but unfortunately those cards haven't been ported over yet. Daybreak Games has done a great job since they've taken over, but they haven't gotten through all the backlogs of other things that need to happen. But hey, two-factor authentication is happening, so we got that going for us. So we do have other artifact creatures that have great artifact synergy. Patchwork Automaton is no Kappa Cannoneer in terms of raw power level, but if we are looking to go fast like we are, playing this and then playing, 3 artifacts or whatever does give you a very reliable sized body, and Ward is no joke. Notably though, this triggers on cast, not on enter the battlefield, and this is going to be relevant. Let's take a look at the deck list that we're going to play today. This is what I came up with. So we're looking to get out of the gates fast with Artifact, Mana, and Ancient Tombs to accelerate out these early creatures that we can then pair with Cranial Plating. Ornithopter, while not the most impressive creature in Legacy, can be immediately turned into a 4/4 with a Retrofitter Foundry, and picking up Cranial Plating with it is very solid. We also have Vault Scourge as another target for our various pieces of equipment, and pairing the lifelink with, +10/+10 really helps out with those fair matchups. Rounding out the deck list in slots that probably should be replaced by our nice Warhammer 40k friend is Stonecoil Serpent, and the sideboard is nothing too exciting here. In my last couple of slots, I wanted to do something to hate on the artifact decks. I'm going to opt for Byforce. I obviously can't run something like a Null Rod or a Meltdown that's symmetrical. So this is just a way for me to clear out opposing artifacts, an ensnaring bridge or whatever it is that might be stopping me from doing my thing. We have a tiny Urza Saga utility package in addition to just our 0 drops that we're normally running. And let's see how this goes. I'm a little worried that I'm soft to Collector Oof. That card's just going to be very good against what I'm doing here. I think I'm just going to ignore that. We do have an Underground Sea that we can use to cast a Brazen Borrower, or otherwise we have Dismember to get it out of the way. But that's kind of the cost of playing a cool artifact deck in Legacy, is that the hate for artifacts is really good. All right, let's battle. My first opening hand is a little bit weird here, in that I have Patchwork Automaton, but I'm unlikely to cast a whole bunch of spells, but I also just have a lot of artifacts that contribute to Urza Saga going well. I think Land Pass, Patchwork Automaton, Urza Saga, Nettlecyst is reasonable in terms of aggression and will get improved a lot if I get any 0-cost artifacts. Chancellor of the Annex. So, oh, 2 of them. I think I'll just make a land drop and pass the turn. It's possible that I'm supposed to just play Stonecoil Serpent on X is 0 to go and clear those triggers 100% of the time. I think I'll just do that on turn 2 and then drop Patchwork Automaton. Yeah, that's my plan. X is 0. Let this get countered. Then drop Patchwork Automaton. We are probably playing against a mono-white initiative deck, in case you're not kind of familiar with what's going on here. My opponent's play for their turn will probably be some soul land into a hate bearer of some kind, you know, Dahlia, Anointed Peacekeeper. If they have a Chrome Mux or another piece of artifact mana, we might start looking at Seasoned Dungeoneer. Oh, yes, this is the sort of thing that I wanted to draw. It's just a 0-cost artifact that is going to make everything else here stronger. Now, Regenerate is not going to work versus Exile-based removal. It'll only work versus destroy stuff. Okay, so my opponent's going to lose 2 life to pay for the ward here, which is honestly perfectly fine. And then I will drop the more threatening Nettlecyst. Now, Nettlecyst does count artifacts and enchantments relevantly. So it's going to be big. We can potentially outpace something like a Seasoned Dungeoneer here. If my opponent plays an initiative creature, I just attack in. I will take the initiative. That Wasteland's very good. That also will shrink Nettlecyst. I guess I'm a little surprised my opponent kept their hand. Like, we're a few turns in and my opponent hasn't really done anything. We're going to go ahead and just continue to make plays that grow my Nettlecyst. We'll shut off future Swords to Plowshares. Classic. Now, this is a piece of equipment, so any top deck creature is going to be incredibly threatening. But this is the stage of the game where we are going to feel not having the draw options that a more traditional artifact deck like 8-cast might have. This is now going to be a very difficult game to win. My opponent's hand was very slow, but it did kind of stop my initial aggro front. I think I'm okay if I still top deck a creature this turn. Yeah, that's like not the best or anything, but it'll be big. This at least means that I am still playing a game of Magic. My opponent has taken a good chunk of damage from their Ancient Tomb. Oh, they are going down the right side rather than the left. I thought they were going to try to race me here. But they may feel that the scry is just necessary because they have kind of multiple dead cards in hand. Alright. So the Seasoned Dungeoneer can safely attack in, as its ability will give protection. Raucous is no big deal. I am at 26 from the Swords to Plowshares. 5 mana, just hardcast a Solitude. Yeah, again, Welding Jar not doing a lot against exile-based removal, unfortunately. Not really sure that hardcasting the Solitude is correct there. Like, my opponent has multiple dead white cards in hand, and they could have just gotten Urza Saga constructs going. Like, with Dash about to happen, like, the constructs are going to be even bigger. Sure. Shadow Spear is quite good here. Don't think I can win this one anymore. Timeless Dragon. Okay, sure. That is a non-traditional inclusion. At this point, I think I am comfortable throwing in the towel. I guess I can wait to see if I draw, like, a Vault Scourge. A Vault Scourge gains a pretty absurd... Throne of the Dead 3 is just about to happen afterwards. No, I'm okay conceding. Okay, I have some options here. Generally speaking, Chalice of the Void is not at its best in this matchup. My opponent has like 4 1-drops that I care about, and I can't really afford to put it on 0. Pithing Needle has some text versus Wasteland, and to a lesser extent against Urza Saga, but I will have the better Urza Sagas. I don't know that I want this card. I think I'm going to get some Torpor Orbs for stopping Initiative and other things like Solitudes. I think I'm willing to play Dismember, and I'll probably fill the last slot with a Brazen Borrower. Welding Jar also not at its best. Decreases my low artifact count, which I've taken 6 artifacts out of the deck. I've replaced a lot of those with artifacts, but 3 of these are non-artifacts. I still think I'm just going to play either a Brazen Borrower or a Metallic Rebuke to kind of round things out, and I think I'm going to go with Brazen Borrower. This hand doesn't really do anything. Like, it has some good tempo plays, but I would like to be more aggressive than just that. This hand is a mana short of where I probably would like to be, but I think I do just keep this and pitch the expensive card here. And I will play Lotus Petal on turn 2 after playing Patchwork Automaton. I'll be hoping to draw a land to make sure that I have enough aggro elements for this hand to be really strong. Notably compared to something like Kappa Cannoneer, this is on cast, not on an artifact entering battlefield, so it's not quite as great with Retrofitter Foundry as we otherwise might like. Oh, please Pithing Needle this. I have, like, so many other good things. Okay, cool, they did. The Dismember is a fine, but relatively unexciting card. We're going to go ahead and do this. We'll grow it by 1. And then we'll kind of see where the next turn cycle leads in terms of Dismember versus Urza Saga token versus play and equip Cranial Plating. Again, I am just hoping for a land drop as a draw. Wasteland's very strong here. Sure. Land drop's so strong here. Yes, an artifact land drop in particular is so good. Note Ward is spell or ability and opponent controls, so we don't have to worry about our Cranial Plating getting countered or anything here. And we do have to lose a Lotus Petal to get this Cranial Plating equipped, but I do get to just crash in with a 7 power, just absolute monster of a Patchwork Automaton here. My opponent is about to lose this mana source. Let's see what they get. Ward is spell or ability. Shadow Spear is an interesting pickup. May just be limited options, but seems like a Chrome Mox is probably better in this spot. Okay, they have a Chrome Mox in hand. A Solitude just went under there, which seems like it would be a pretty good card in this spot. Yep, they've got a Source of Plowshares for this. They do successfully pay the ward cost. I need another body. I found one. Could equip this at instant speed for funsies, but I'm not going to show my opponent that trick. I'm going to have an opportunity to dismember the first artifact token that my opponent attempts to equip with Shadow Spear, and hopefully try to aggro close this game out. Rough. Yep. And this is Pithing Needled, so I can't convert this into a 4/4. Urza Saga is a fantastic draw. Unless my opponent has another Pithing Needle, in which case it's pretty awkward. Alright, take your construct, and we'll see how bad this is. Retrofitter Foundry. We're going to do a rare thing for Legacy. We're actually going to pay Dismember's actual mana cost, which just so rarely actually happens. Alright, cool stuff. My opponent's got mana. They can play like some sort of initiative creature this turn or something. Assuming like no Solitude or something, this is going to be totally fine for me. Like, my opponent is at a much lower life total than I am. And I am going to have the larger creature, and I'm about to be able to just shut off Shadow Spear, because I assume that I'm getting my Pithing Needle. Ah. Oh no, it is right here. I was about to say, did I really forget Pithing Needle? That would have been embarrassing. Is my own Shadow Spear better? I don't think so. I boarded Pithing Needle out. That's awkward. So I could have. I remembered that I boarded Pithing Needle out. I could have tapped this Spell Bomb Bounce Season Dungeoneer, but I didn't. I guess we go this route instead. There's still a very large amount of damage, and I should still go ahead and like out damage and race my opponent in most circumstances, but I give my opponent a chance to like remain in this game when they otherwise probably would not have been in the game. For sure. Imagine Thalia just goes to the graveyard here. Yeah, that's not what they're looking for. They didn't equip Shadow Spear. I guess the 4 life is not saving them. That cavern is on Hume. Okay, now they do have white for another Solitude. I will go ahead and cast this. Swing in with both constructs. Okay, that's fine. They can Solitude, remove the bigger one, then chump block this one. That keeps them alive for another turn. And I'll go ahead and equip this here. My opponent is going to need something that deals with the construct token. A Shadow Spear equip might keep them alive for another turn, actually. Depending on what my draw is. Okay, yep. So they really need the Seasoned Dungeoneer to get a +1/+1 counter here, and luckily they did. The Timeless Dragon is an absolutely phenomenal hit for them. What are you doing? You send the Timeless Dragoneer to graveyard, and then you can play that this turn. Like, that's so much of an insurance policy. Let's cast this. I will keep the Lotus Petal because it buffs my construct in this turn cycle. Let's send this in. Let's see if my opponent has a Swords to Plowshares. No, they have a Touch the Spirit Realm, though. Alright. I've been tempoed out in a pretty annoying way here. Go ahead and bin that. Then a Timeless Dragon is going to happen. Okay. Situation is not ideal. Sure. Yeah, I am very much missing not having the endgame card draw. Going to go ahead and concede here. Things I could have done differently. I think I win the game if I just leave up blue on that one turn, so I could have gotten Spellbomb and bounced this. I think that's a very easy win. On my previous turn, I could have also done a Stonecoil Serpent for X is 3, equipped Ornithopter with Shadow Spear, and split off my damage so that I always get... Well, not always. I'm more likely to take the initiative in that turn cycle. But ultimately, like, we lost this game because my opponent had... Counting this as blowing up a threat because it hit Urza Saga. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of single target removal. And that's going to be brutal for this deck that doesn't have card advantage like 8cast does. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is, in my opinion, the best Magic the Gathering website for hosting your deck lists online. One of my favorite features is that you can create your own custom tags for when you're deck building. So let's say you're building a commander deck and you want to know, hey, how many copy effects do I have? You can just create a tag and sort everything, and there's fun little hotkeys so that you can do this more quickly. So really, please consider checking them out if you are looking to tinker with deck lists online. Okay, I have a hand that can produce a lot of Urza Saga tokens, but I can't do it quickly. So I play Seat into Retrofitter Foundry and Welding Jar. I play a Chalice on 2, and then I start making constructs. Do I want to play the game at that pace? I'd like to be faster than that, honestly. Like, I'm an aggro deck at the end of the day. I'm not looking to grind things out. I think I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this one and try to be faster. Yes. Yes. Ancient Tomb, Patchwork Automaton, Mox Opal, Welding Jar. Metalcraft is on. Mox Opal and 2 life for Vault Scourge. Turn 2 Cranial Plating, equip. I do not need Lotus Petal with this hand. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that this deck conceptually wants to do. We're gonna get big. We are gonna get real big. 2 life for Vault Scourge. Alright, I have 5 power in play on turn 1 with a ward ability and a welding jar as protection. And Cranial Plating is going to represent 5 damage on turn 2. I get into a Veteran Explorer. That's awkward. That's very awkward. So I'm always casting Cranial Plating. I'm always equipping to Vault Scourge. And I attack with Patchwork Automaton and give my opponent 2 lands. Vault Scourge is already probably a 3-turn clock. I don't think I give them the lands. I think I'm just going to go ahead and attack in the air. Like, I have the Vault Scourge backed by Welding Jar. I just don't want to lose to something like Pernicious Deed. Oh, what's about to happen here is that my opponent is going to sacrifice their Veteran Explorer to the flashback of Cabal Therapy and hit the card that's in my hand with 100% certainty. In 2 rounds in a row, I've gotten punished for not playing a... What did I put on bottom? I put a Lotus Petal on bottom. I don't want to look at that. For not putting a basic land into my deck. Once for the Initiative, and once for Veteran Explorer. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is perfectly fine. I can attack Patchwork Automaton into that. It's the things that my opponent can do after looking at 2 extra cards that can be scary here. So Vault Scourge is just lethal next turn. Ooh, my opponent's thinking about just going to 1. And they decide against it. So I have a Welding Jar available so that I can regenerate an artifact, which stops a lot of the Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy type things from mattering. Multiple Griefs. So they're probably playing like Undying Evils or something like that for that to make sense. And let's see if they've got an out here. I don't care about Collector Oof. Collector Oof plus like an Abrupt Decay might be annoying. It stops the Welding Jar from doing the things that I want Welding Jar to do. Yeah. This is with a basic land type, so I can pick up Underground Sea here. If I draw any artifact, my opponent has to chump block with Collector Oof. Hey, it's an artifact. I do have to pay 2 life for this one way or another. The Patchwork Automaton now goes up to a 6/6, meaning that the chump block is obligatory, and Welding Jar and Cranial Plating get turned back on, which is great for me. And we'll go ahead and equip that to Vault Scourge. The Vault Scourge is lethal in the air, and I have Welding Jar to protect. My opponent's unlikely to have flyers. A reach creature could happen. Okay. That's a good one to have in hand. So let's cast this Ornithopter. And I will attack with both of my creatures, both of which are representing lethal. Ooh, a sneaky Dryad Arbor block. That is attacks or blocks. The opponent's going to go for the draw a card mode. Now the question is, do I actually use the Welding Jar to save Vault Scourge? I think so. I don't know. It doesn't actually matter that much. Like the Vault Scourge specifically. Like protecting the Cranial Plating so that Ornithopter is also a threat probably matters more. I'm going to go ahead and let that go. Gain a good amount of life there. And we'll go ahead and equip to the Ornithopter. Opponent's putting up a hell of a fight for a game that I thought was over a couple turns ago. I don't have super great sideboard options here. I have a lot of things that do stuff, but they're all kind of awkward. I probably don't want to be playing Chalice of the Void when I'm on the draw, because a Veteran Explorer can come down on turn 1 and just kind of dodge Chalice. And a lot of the things that are truly scary in my opponent's deck cost a bunch of mana. So I think I'm interested in Chalice out or maybe 4 of these 6 cards. I don't think I want to mess around with Leyline of the Void. I think it just dilutes my threat density too much to do so. And I'm not sure which of those I want to actually play. Metallic Rebuke is a good catch-all, assuming that I have mana held up, but like I do just have very large things that I want to hold up. I think when I'm on the draw, I am just going to play 4 pieces of things that interact with things that are sitting on the board. And if I go to a game 3 where I'm going to be on the play, Metallic Rebuke becomes more attractive. I think this is a fine keep. Like, Nettlecyst is very large. It can come down on turn 1 if I want it to. Yeah, and this is why I'm not playing Chalice. I am on the draw. Patchwork Automaton is great here. Let's go ahead and lead on that. Go ahead and Lotus Petal here. I have things like Grief and Cabal Therapy to worry about. I am going to go ahead and cast this now accordingly. I don't want to play the Pithing Needle yet. The Pithing Needle probably hits Grist, but it could hit Pernicious Deed. And if possible, I would like to have the option to choose between those. And let's talk about a fun little rules interaction here in case it happens. Let's say that I did play a Chalice of the Void on turn 1, and my opponent cast something like this. Like, the sacrifice is done as a part of the cost, so you don't actually stop your opponent from doing the thing that they want to be doing. Alright, that is a Green Sun for Collector Oof, which is going to stop me from casting most of the things in my hand here. That is a... I cannot overstate how good of a draw that is, because that lets me free the Nettlecyst from my hand and create a second body while also triggering Patchwork Automaton to keep my aggression up. Like, Collector Oof is not the game over here that my opponent wants it to be, and that it traditionally might be. They are going to need more here. Grief is fine. Not like that does nothing, but like my opponent takes a Pithing Needle. Is perhaps not the ideal card at this stage of the game. Go ahead and play out an artifact land. And let's stay on the beatdown plan. If my opponent's just going to chump block that, I don't need to make my Urza Saga construct token right now, so that I can better play around. Actually, I guess Pernicious Deed will just beat the Urza Saga if I try to wait, right? Douthie Voidwalker's fine. That can't block. I will go ahead and make a critter, hoping to put the Collector Oof into chump block territory. That's very good. My opponent doesn't have a lot of removal available that messes with my stuff. Cranial Plating on Patchwork Automaton is pretty good here. Oh no, I can't equip because of Collector Oof. Okay, sorry, got lost in my own thoughts for a minute there. So let's make this, assuming that Collector Oof leaves play. I think I want Welding Jar, and I am willing to take 2 to buff up this damage by 1. Alright, let's see how my opponent is able to deal with this. Alright, we are in chump block territory, and my opponent is just dead. Ooh, we won some games through Collector Oof there. Okay, I've kept my opening hand here, and there's some decisions to be made. I am going to opt to play the Patchwork Automaton on turn 1 in an attempt to maximize the amount of damage that a Patchwork Automaton will do over the course of this game. However, by using that Lotus Petal, I don't have guaranteed Cranial Plating and Equip mana over the course of this game. So that's a thing. JK! Oh, that is a strong draw. Without thinking about it, that may just be my literal best draw in the deck right there, because that allows us to Cranial Plating, My opponent was just waiting to pay costs on something. I think they have a Solitude. So while I normally would equip this to Ornithopter, in this exact instance, I'm going to go ahead and equip it to Patchwork Automaton. This is just one of those times where my opponent tipped their hand a little bit too early. And now if they want to Solitude my Patchwork Automaton, I'm going to make them pay the ward cost of 2. Nice. Yeah, I don't know if this is an exaggeration, but my opponent preemptively clicking on their Solitude might have lost them this game. Because if I would have equipped this here and they removed this, they would have had a chance to really play the mid-range things that their deck is probably capable of. We're probably something in that, like, Mavericky depths ballpark. Which probably means Chalice of the Void, especially on the draw, is a medium. I probably am going to play these sorts of cards. Not super interested in Chalice. Welding Jar is not great versus exile-based removal, but is fine for in-combat math. And I don't really have that many things that I want to bring in. On the draw, I'm probably just going to make this change. All right, this has 1 mana and is clearly not going to do it. Whereas this is going to be quite strong. Let's figure out how I'm going to play this. Turn 1, Nettlecyst and Ornithopter. Into turn 2, Cranial Plating, equip. Sounds pretty good. I can throw back the Vault Scourge if I'm going to play the game that way. I think I'm into that. Now, I do have to worry about a just very quick Collector Oof or equivalent coming down from my opponent's side of the Vault Scourge came back. All right. Anyway, Collector Oof could happen as soon as next turn from my opponent, and I just kind of have to keep that in mind. This Nettlecyst is going to start out small, but I'm playing this out early on so that if my opponent consumes removal on the token, I can still just re-equip. Okay, yeah, just natural Collector Oof in hand. Urza Saga as the draw? Negative. So we're still just going to try to rumble in combat to the best of my ability here. Which hurts. This means playing Retrofitter Foundry by tapping Ancient Tomb, and then by paying 2 more life for the Vault Scourge so that I can be attacking with a 5/5 on turn 2. And this is why I led on the Nettlecyst rather than something that just tried to quickly equip Cranial Plating and like playing Vault Scourge out on turn 1. This gives me the big body in the worst case scenarios. Oh, it is Savannah-based elves rather than something in the Maverick ballpark. So, oh gosh. Oh wait, is that it? Is that all that's happening? That's so okay with me. That could have been so much worse. I guess a mid-combat endurance is still a thing that could happen. I will cast this Pithing Needle. It's fine. If any Elvish Reclaimer nonsense ends up happening in response. Does not. I'm still going to name that card despite the fact that a Grist is quite bad for me. I am a little bit worried about like an endurance coming in combat right here and then just losing this germ token. Oh, it is a Boseiju. That is a disaster. I do have an Underground Sea that I can find, but I was kind of all in on that Nettlecyst for this game. I still technically have like Dismember and Brazen Borrower that I can draw to do some cool stuff, but this is probably the end for me. Kind of feels to me like I want some sort of like Grafdigger's Cage type card for a matchup like this one. From 13 life, this is just going to kill me. That's fine. So I brought in 4 outs to a Collector Oof. When I am on the play, Chalice of the Void is a much more reasonable card. The problem is that Allosaurus Shepherd exists and is An answer to Chalice of the Void that does not require my opponent to use resources or time blowing up Chalice. But Chalice is also something that can just slow down the advent of a Collector Oof. I could see myself removing Tezzerets just because the game is probably effectively over via like Cranial Plating, Patchwork Automaton, Nettlecyst by the time I'm getting to that mana. Like in one direction or another. It's hard to play a Tezzeret post Collector Oof. I then get rid of Aether Spellbomb. Its utility is very narrow in terms of actually doing what I want it to do. It can specifically bounce an Atraxa. That's natural ordered out early. Maybe I'm not activating Retro Foundry in most timelines. I'll go ahead and keep this. It's possible Metallic Rebuke is better than Chalice. I'm not interested in this hand. I don't think it goes fast enough. And I'm going to say same thing with this hand. I want to have made a strong play by the time that my opponent gets to 3 mana. I'm not overly excited about this. On 5, I probably just have to keep it. Yeah, not a big fan of what's happening here. I need to... There's a weird quirk on Magic Online where if you do the black mana first, it gets super confused about letting you add the Phyrexian mana in casting spells like this one. So, Thoughtseize is pretty rough. A Mana Accelerant is pretty rough. This is perfectly fine. So, I always do that. And then I think, like last game, I play the Nettlecyst so that I have... I need to Lotus Petal first. So that I have the large thing in play for if my opponent just has the natural Collector Oof in hand yet again. Like, this counts Urza's Saga. I have a good amount of power in play. I do need to dodge just Collector Oof naturally this turn. Okay, I mean, my opponent just had Collector Oof in their opening 7 without mulliganing 2 games in a row. That is absolutely brutal for me. Especially since it's like probably a 1-of in their deck list. You know, it is what it is. That's Magic, right? Oh, no, am I just going to be dead on their turn 3? The answer is no, but I think I am comfortable just conceding here. My opponent has Collector Oof and 4 other creatures in play to my 0 active mana sources. GG. Alright, no mana. Easy mulligan. I've finally drawn a Tezzeret. Ancient Tomb, Ornithopter, Cranial Plating, Mox Opal, Equip. I'm going to keep this hand. Slightly awkwardly, I'm going to throw back the second Mox Opal. It is legendary, but it's also the thing that lets me cast Tezzeret on turn 2. Alright, we are potentially playing against lands or a lands-adjacent deck list. I will be the stronger Urza Saga deck, but if my... I don't think I cast that here. So the sequencing here matters quite a bit. I need to go ahead and play the Ornithopter last so that I guaranteed have access to this mana to equip so that a removal spell doesn't deny me a mana, but we didn't get hit by something like a Punishing Fire. Assuming no other draws, I'm going to plan to cast a Chalice of the Void for X's 2 on turn 2 to shut off Punishing Fire and Life from the Loam, as well as Sphere of Resistance. Alright, there is a stage. My opponent's chilling. I do want to do the things that I'm going to do pre-combat. I still think I am going to go the X's 2 route versus the X's 1 route. My opponent already has access to Dark Depths in a slow way. They can already use the Urza Saga trigger on their next turn to get something like an Expedition map, and then use that to find depths. I think this game is much more about keeping my current, like, keeping them from getting ahead in other ways. They did have the crop rotation. They're able to make the Merit Lodge slightly faster, although they potentially already had that crop rotation in hand. So if I cast Chalice of the Void for X's 1, they just would have done it in response. Oh. Sure. Does that just mean you have the Dark Depths in hand already? Okay, there's the expedition map. Ooh, a Valakut exploration. That's a fun one. And another source of card advantage. Alright, I will take a little bit of damage. That's fine. Nettlecyst is strong here. But I might not be immediately casting it. I think I'm just going to take the value from my Urza Saga at sorcery speed here, so that I do one more damage via Cranial Plating. Gonna bash in with Ornithopter. I don't think I moved my Cranial Plating over to the Construct token. My mana is relatively tight this game. Alright, gamble is occurring. I'm guessing my opponent did not gamble for Rashadenport. It is an exploration. Grove's fine. We've got Punishing Fire covered. My opponent's cracking map. Can beat a Tabernacle. Maze is good. Opponent's waiting to pay costs on another thing. They have put a Boseiju into their graveyard intentionally, I guess. I need to check. Is my Pithing Needle in the deck game 1? I think it is, right? It is. So I can... Oh, my opponent's just done. Yeah. I was going to Pithing Needle Maze of Ith, and I was just trying to work out whether or not I would have enough mana to Nettlecyst and equip in this turn cycle, or whether I still was going to make a Construct token. I wonder how experienced my opponent is with this deck. It felt like if they went for a Dark Depths kill early on, I was just very soft to it. I am very interested in Brazen Borrower to bounce Merit Lodge tokens. I might play by Force here. It's not like crazy good or anything, but just 1 mana, blow up my opponent's Mox. Alright, okay, I guess 2 mana, blow up my opponent's Mox is fine. I might leverage that better when I'm on the play, though. Palace on the draw might be too slow. Palace on the draw might be too slow. I'll play Brazen Borrower. I could play Leyline of the Void, but I wouldn't mulligan to it. Probably wouldn't miss 2 Stone Coiled Serpents. That's been something that I've pretty frequently been throwing back. I would keep a hand of this caliber on 6 cards, but on 7, I think I'd rather just throw back. This is unexciting, but I believe that I will keep it here. Leyline just is going to do nothing in a good portion of the games, and it will single-handedly win other games, like there's clear trade-offs. And this is kind of the problem, right? Let's go ahead and Vault Scourge here. We'll play out an Opal. This Opal's technically on, but I can't do anything with it in the short term here. Yeah, while Leyline is great versus some of the things my opponent can bring to the table, against things like Urza Saga and Valakut Exploration, it just doesn't do enough. There's no reason to let me untap with that land. Like, now I can Brazen Borrower, and I have use for mana in this turn cycle. That was a pretty bad misplay. Alright, so I will go ahead and drop a seat. Attack for 1. I will need more mana, but I've taken my opponent off of their graveyard and denied them some mana. Alright, they're going for a map. I get another land out of their hand so they can replay the Mox Diamond. Another Urza Saga is super unfortunate for me. And I'm a little heavy on converted mana costs right now. Like, the cards that I have are reasonable and quite good, and Nettlecyst does scale off Leyline of the Void. But my opponent has a chance to get ahead here. They're going for a Boseiju. So, if my opponent Boseijus something with poor timing, I'm actually going to get to cast a spell that I otherwise wouldn't be able to cast. So we'll see what they do with it. Alright, nothing yet. I will go ahead and play a Retrofitter Foundry and pass the turn. If my opponent Boseijus one of my cards, I will get to activate Retrofitter Foundry. Yep, that's fine. Underground Sea. I am going to go ahead and activate this now in case my opponent wants to Pithing Needle. That is a very real thing that could happen here. My opponent is debating whether or not they are making this construct token. If they don't, my Tezzeret is much better. They're going for another Mox Diamond. They presumably have Life from the Loam in their hand, given how they have played this game thus far. Just full-on Blast Zone. Okie dokie. I don't quite understand, but we'll do some dammies here, and then drop a very large body. All of this stuff is going to dodge an early, like, Blast Zone on 1. Okay, we're just chilling. I guess I will play out another Nettlecyst to grow the first one. And we'll send in some damage. My opponent is quite dead next turn, and I should beat... Yeah. I think my opponent is trying out this deck rather than knows what they're doing. Like, we are in that all access time. And I think this was a great example of... I don't think my opponent had, like, clear direction of what they were playing towards in these games. So, for example, my opponent spent a lot of resources getting rid of my Leyline of the Void when they didn't just have Light from the Loam to, like, really incentivize them to do so. Like, admittedly, I can't see everything that was going on in their hand, but I think my opponent kind of got lost in the sauce of all of the lines available to them. GG's. Alright, final round here. I'm on the play. I'm not doing anything fast with this hand. I think I just ship it. What about with this one? Do I just play this as a Saga hand? Just play, like, Beat Foundry, Opal, turn 2, 3 mana, cast Chalice on 1, play Urza's Saga. That's probably reasonable. Bolas. Tezzeret has not been a banger this league. Alright, Seat, Foundry, Opal, Ass. Not interested in doing something like a Chalice on 0 blind, not knowing what the matchup is. Every time. Oh. Wasn't expecting that route. Are we at, like, a Black Saga Storm deck? Or a Black Saga Storm deck? Yeah. It's so funny that I mentioned that I wasn't going to Chalice on 0 blind. My opponent will go up to 7 mana here. This casts an Ad Naus from a very large life total. Okay, they have a Tendrils in hand and the ability to cast it via a Dark Ritual. I am deterministically dead at this point. I'm going to go ahead and concede. So we'll go ahead and take some counter spells here. Beyond that, Leyline of the Void and By Force both have some text. I do not want Aether Spellbomb. Welding Jar is probably unnecessary. I don't know. It can save a Chalice or something. I'll think about that. Probably not a Retrofitter Foundry matchup. It's not a Tezzeret matchup. I don't know that I've cast one of these this league. I'm recording this over 2 days. I don't remember if I cast one yesterday, but I think it goes here. This Fluster, Rebuke. I will play the By Forces. I don't think I'm going into the Leyline and Brazen Borrower territory. I think this is what I'm doing. Actually, is Tezzeret better than Stonecoil Serpent? I don't know that I've cast a Stonecoil Serpent this league either. Tezzeret might just be better. It just digs for another lock piece. Or turns my artifact mana that I don't need anymore into a better threat. I actually am going to scale in that direction. Yes. Yeah, like, Tezzeret looks great in this hand. So we will go ahead and Ancient Tomb, Patchwork Automaton, Mox Opal, throw in this little good boy here. I'm going to Chalice on 0 in this matchup. Now, Metalcraft is on. I will lose 2 more life to go ahead and play a Vault Scourge. I will now have a turn 2 Tezzeret that does have the ability to animate Chalice of the Void if I would like, or otherwise just turn Vault Scourge into a 5/5. Yeah, this is something I was looking to do for a good portion of the rest of the league. No! Come on! Come on. That's so cruel. Alright. 5 damage on in here. This Chalice of the Void isn't going to last me forever. Like, my opponent does have combo lines that do not include artifact mana. But hopefully we can just go and aggro my opponent out with a Lava Axe worth of damage. Thoughtseize themselves. Note, that is an intentional play to go and take that card out of their hand for the purposes of Infernal Tutor. Note, I am not making a play mistake here. I am casting an Ornithopter to put a counter on Patchwork Automaton. And I will bash in for 6 damage. My opponent has to do something pretty crazy with an Infernal Tutor here. They can Infernal Tutor with 3 mana left. I don't think that's going to do it. And I don't think I'm changing anything about my sideboarding here. The game where I am on the draw is certainly spooky, as we saw. I think my opponent turn 1 me the previous game. I don't remember exactly, but they played a 0-drop on turn 1 that I was sad about and then cast Dark Ritual, so I think I died. This is an early Patchwork Automaton, but nothing after that. This hand interacts with my opponent. I will keep it. I probably need to keep a threat, so I think that means Shadow Spear goes here. If my opponent just plays out a couple of artifacts and passes, I can buy force some artifacts and buy myself some time. That is an Urza Saga. It feels like this is going to be a Patchwork Automaton hand. We'll play that. We'll cast Lotus Petal, and I will have Flusterstorm available. Or if my opponent goes for some sort of combo-based kill. If they're not going for a combo-based kill this game, and they are just planning on beating me with Urza Saga tokens, I can beat that with Byforce. Woohoo! So I'm not Byforcing in this turn cycle. I think I will just go ahead and play out a Nettlecyst. My opponent currently has the larger creature, if they make that, so I am just going to be passing the turn here. And we'll see if Byforce can get me out of this. Like, I can Byforce for a very large amount. So sack in the Petal to make a token. Ooh. Yep. Oh my god, that Ancient Tomb is fucking disgusting. It makes it so much harder for me to clean up this game with the Byforce. What if I double block? If I double block, will my opponent activate Haywire Might or activate Urza Saga? They'll activate Urza Saga. Then I can Byforce away most of their board while still having a Nettlecyst around. That's awkward, but I think I'm into it. Also, apologies if you hear a little chirp. I think I need to go change a battery in my smoke detector. Alright, they are going for Haywire Might, targeting the Nettlecyst. Alright, that's fine. I'm not going to clear quite as many tokens as I wanted to. Oh, that is a draw. Alright. Cast Pithing Needle. My opponent will respond by activating Urza Saga, forcing that construct into play. We'll shut off Urza Saga so they can't make another one. 1, 2, 3. Costs me 2 life. But I have weathered the storm from the fair game. And I will have a Flusterstorm left around for the unfair stuff. Alright, yeah, so my opponent needs to kind of refuel. They've used 2 Urza Sagas. Well, I guess I don't care about that card so much anymore. Let's see where this goes. LED. Preparing for the unfair stuff to do some work. Patchwork Automaton is great. It kind of tips my hand that I have a counterspell here, but I do think I am supposed to hold up the blue mana. Flusterstorm's not the greatest against double Ancient Tomb now. It is what it is. I have a lot of life to catch up on here. And I would like to catch up on that deficit quickly so that ad nauseum becomes worse. Okay, again, we've got that needled. That's not the end of the world here. I need artifacts that I can cast. Again, the difference between Patchwork Automaton and Kappa Cannoneer definitely being felt here. Baubles are fine. Okay, my opponent is flooding out. So am I. Ooh, there is a play here. Okay. I'm just going to let my opponent do that thing. That is an ad nause. I probably need to go ahead and Flusterstorm this. You'll be choosing same targets every time. It's just so easy for my opponent to punch this Flusterstorm out of my hand if I don't go for this now. Like, they have the capability of paying for it, but the hope here is that they cannot win on this same turn. And if they can't win on the same turn, I can just draw a Cranial Plating or a Nettlecyst and get a kill on my next turn. So let's see how this goes. They've got a lot of mana. I may already be dead. With the Storm count of 5 and only being at 12 life. I think I'm dead. Alright, they are at 4. They can't flip anymore. But I think this is the end. From Mox Imprints, there's double LED. It's just like Infernal Tutor, crack. Both LEDs, get Tendrils, already kills me. Right, yeah, there it is. Yeah, so oddly enough, my opponent flooding out gave them just enough mana to play around my Flusterstorm. And I am dead. I will concede. And that leaves us with a 2-3 finish in this league. All right, that was a pretty interesting league in my opinion. The deck kind of did its thing. We ran out of gas at times, and at times we definitely missed out on some of the card draw that cards like Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor offer. And we felt some of that difference in power level between Patchwork Automaton and Kappa Cannoneer. Let's go ahead and take one last look at the deck list here and call it a day. Cards that underperformed in this league were probably Stonecoil Serpent. I am not sure that I cast it a single time. It was very frequently the card that I put back from mulligans. It does have some really cool utility, like being immune to a Teferi bounce. Like, it has space in this deck. I think it is a reasonable inclusion. We also didn't play against Delver, I don't think, where we really would have appreciated just being able to play this on X's 4 and just have something that walls Delvers and Dragon Rage Channelers. So there's that. I'm not sure that I ever drew Tezzeret. I had to throw it back in some opening hands. Or no, I drew it. I think it just got countered or thought seized or something like that. So we didn't get to see this card pop off today, unfortunately. If the Warhammer 40k stuff were around, I would be looking at making my cuts in this category here to kind of make sure that I have the appropriate number of slots. And if I were to run this back again, I think I would get rid of Byforce and just go ahead and play Hurkyl's Recall. I think it was probably a mistake to include Byforce over Hurkyl's Recall. I was kind of thinking about some ensnaring bridge-based stuff where, like, I do want to permanently answer it. But ultimately, in playing the matches, I just saw that, like, opposing Urza Saga tokens were really the biggest issue, and Hurkyl's cleans those out at a more mana-efficient rate than Byforce does. So yeah, just as a reminder, if you're going to buy any cards from this deck list, please consider using my Cool Stuff Inc. link and the promo code ThrabenU. All that stuff's down below, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day. See you again soon.